I'd like to call the meeting, council meeting of Tuesday, January the 13th to order. It's 6 o'clock, and I welcome, we have people in the gallery tonight. We always appreciate when our residents show up, and I know there's particular interest over one of the topics on our agenda tonight as it relates to the Broad Cove Association and the work and tenacity of that group to stick with a project for as many years as they have. So we'll be addressing that later on. So thank you and welcome to those. We also have the food bank representatives here tonight. So thank you for your attendance. We appreciate having people present. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we are grateful to share the land with them. Are there any announcements, acknowledgements, or recognition? I will, just before I have councillors open to comment, is that Councillor Brooks is joining us by Teams. He's got a bad cough that just won't go away, and our Councillor DeLong is on a medical leave. So with that, I'll open it for council members who may have acknowledgements that they wish to make. Christmas break, I guess. But I do have two recognitions that I would like to tell people about. And the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities recognizes long service for councillors and wardens and mayors. And we are lucky to have two long-serving council members, both here tonight, Kathy Moore and Martin Bell. And Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities recognizes their service. In the case of Kathy, it's 20 years, and in the case of Martin, it's 25 years. This is astounding service to the community, and to, as someone who's just worked with them for the last year, I've appreciated the institutional knowledge that they bring to this place and to the work that we do together, and they are a wealth of information and support to us who are new to our role as councillors and mayor, and we appreciate the work that they do. They set a high standard for their consideration of their community and representing their community and the residents that they serve. So I can't say on behalf of Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, but I will say on behalf of MODL and the municipality, the District of Lunenburg, we thank you for your service and appreciate your work very much. So I'll deliver these to you. We will move on with our agenda to, I do have a proclamation, and this is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, whereas there are an estimated 16,000 people living with dementia in Nova Scotia, and whereas it is projected that the number of people living with dementia in Nova Scotia will increase by 87%, with nearly 30,000 people likely to be living with dementia by 2050. And whereas the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia is committed to alleviating the personal and social consequences of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, and to promoting the search for the causes and cures, therefore be it proclaimed that I, Mayor Elspeth McLean-Weil, on behalf of the District of Lunenburg, do hereby proclaim January 2026 as Alzheimer's Awareness Month in the District of Lunenburg. We do allow an opportunity for public input, and we, if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to make a comment, speak, now is your time to do that. And we encourage people to use this time to bring forth any issues or concerns they may have. And we ask that your statements be respectful of all members of the public and staff and council. We just ask that you identify yourself. And if you have a question or concern that's easily answered, I will try to do that. And if it's more complex, we will refer it to our staff to come back with an answer at a at some point in the future. So that's why we need your name and contact information. And the reason we want to report back on that is that then it becomes part of the public record. So not only the answer to your question, but there may be others of our residents who have a similar question, and it becomes part of our public record. So is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight? We're going to hear from the food bank in a few minutes, but I don't see anybody. So, but please, we encourage anyone who may be listening or watching to use that time to bring forth concerns that they may have. We will move to changes and approval of the agenda, and there is one additional item that we should add, which is the minutes of the November 25th special council meeting. So that would be in addition to what's on your agenda. Councillor Reinhardt.
Thank you. I was just wondering if, because we do have a large group here for a specific issue, if there was any way we could move that up. I know we have a presentation scheduled, but perhaps it could be directly after that.
We can do that, yes. Thank you for bringing that forward. Would someone approve the agenda with the addition of the special council meeting and the movement of the Broad Cove discussion? Deputy Mayor Vino, and seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Brooks. We'll move on to business arising from the minutes. I don't think we have anything, or do we?
We did have public input
Okay.
at the regular meeting on December 9th. However, it related to the bylaw discussion on the potable water financing, and so it was addressed during the meeting.
Okay. All that discussion about the minutes, and I skipped them. So the minutes, we'll deal with the minutes from the special council meeting of November 25th. Are there errors or omissions? Seeing no one to raise anything, I'll approve them as circulated. And the special council meeting of December the 9th, are there errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing nothing from any of the council members, I'll declare them approved as circulated. And finally, the regular council meeting of December 9th, are there errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll declare those approved as circulated. Business arising from the minutes, we're good then on that? Okay. We have, the next item then will be the awarding of tenders and the purchase of the accessible e-bike. Ms. Fryer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here today seeking Council approval to proceed with a sole source purchase of one accessible e-bike from Hamilton Trike at a cost of $18,593, exclusive of HST and shipping. A request for quotes was issued in October 2025 and received no formal responses. Staff then reviewed provincial standing offers, Canoe Procurement, and Kinetic GPO procurement platforms, but no suppliers were identified. Staff note that this is a specialized piece of equipment and therefore has limited market availability. The municipality received $25,000 from the Active Communities Grant for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, covering up to 75% of eligible costs, with remaining costs offset through the Active Transportation operational budget. This grant deadline occurred after the capital budget process, which is why this purchase was not included in the 2025-2026 capital budget. The municipality operates a free e-bike loan program with 7 e-bikes. This was soft launched in fall 2025, gearing up for a full launch this spring. The accessible e-bike will be included in the e-bike loaning fleet, and we are exploring a partnership with Lunenburg County Wheels to support transporting the e-bikes into the community, demonstrating commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. In addition, staff were referred to Hamilton Trike through an existing partnership with Hillside Homes for Special Care, which has purchased and used 3 different styles of accessible e-bikes. Hillside Pines has provided positive feedback regarding equipment quality and the reliability of this supplier. Staff have firsthand experience with this specific bench seat style of accessible e-bike, which there is a photo of it in the appendix in the staff report. We are recommending it as well-suited to support accessibility and safety. So in conclusion, staff recommend that council approve a sole source purchase of an accessible e-bike from Hamilton Trike in the amount of $18,593. Thank you.
Could someone put the motion on the floor, and then we can have discussion on it? Okay. Councillor Hubley?
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move municipal council award the purchase of an accessible e-bike to Hamilton Trike in the amount of $18,593, exclusive of HST and shipping costs, and I so move.
And a seconder for the motion? Deputy Mayor Vino. Discussion on the motion or questions? Councillor Hubley.
Oh, I left my mic on. Just a quick question. It says the grant covers 75% of the $18,593. Quick math, so that's leaving $4,600 to come from the active transportation operational budget, correct?
Yep.
Okay. 4648. Okay.
Other questions? Do we have room to store these bikes? And, because this has got a, yeah, it's got a basket in it, a big basket.
Yes, we just had a storage shed built at the LCLC, and we considered that we were planning ahead for this, so we have the space to store it alongside the 7 other e-bikes.
Any other, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just wanted to comment that I went to the, the municipality did a pop-up at the market in New Germany over the summer, and I got to try out an e-bike for the first time, and it was a blast. And I really look forward to these e-bikes getting out into the community, including the accessible e-bike. I'll be interested in knowing how we're going to move it around because of the size. But looking forward to seeing that full plan from the department because, yeah, I think it would be great to get them out into all the areas of the municipality.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. I would invite the food bank representatives to come forward. Is it John? John, are you speaking for? Okay. You're welcome at the mic.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Biddle.
much. It's John Biddle, by the way, a counterpart, Kevin Keddy. I want to thank Mayor, councilors, for letting us make a presentation today on behalf of the Bridgewater and Area Interchurch Food Bank. And why we are here is to ask for financial support, being a grant, to help us continue operations at our current levels. Food insecurity can affect everyone. 1 in 3 households in Nova Scotia are food insecure. It seems like a high rate, but this is a source from Feed Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has the highest rate in the country. Again, the source is from Feed Nova Scotia. Many are only a life event away from food insecurity. You could take a job loss, somebody could twist their ankle, be off work, and they don't have short-term disability. They could be off for medical reasons for months and not have any income. So that does create a lot of difficulty or could create a lot of difficulty for some families. And food insecurity, what does it do? Well, it leads to poor mental and physical health, isolation in some cases, and barriers to employment. I can certainly understand the isolation because quite often a person does not want to be or cannot go out with groups, out to the pub or whatever, to have a meal. So consequently, they'd just as soon stay home and not be in a position whereby, you know, they can't do it. Now, we are a nonprofit organization formed in 1984. The mandate was to provide support to those in a crisis situation. And what we try to do is we try to give our clients anywhere between 3 and 5 days of food. That's our objective. Governed by a volunteer board, and I don't know if you want me to read all of the names, but I will. Tammy Crowder is chair, Sandy Emino is secretary, Kevin Keddy is our treasurer, thank heavens. Myself as a coordinator, I primarily deal with purchasing. Suzanne Stewart, who is coordinator and vice chair, and she deals primarily with the interworkings of the food bank. Linda Rauter, Mel Loveridge, and Claudette Garland. We have approximately 45 volunteers that work at the food bank. And when you consider that, in theory, the food bank is only open 6 hours a week. And you multiply that out by 50 weeks because there's, roughly 2 weeks that we're off. That's not very many hours. And yet, the number of hours that are put in by volunteers are in the vicinity of 7,000 hours. We're open 2 days a week, 12:15 to 3:15. One visit every 2 weeks, except for emergency situations. And we could get a call at any time at night. Some of us have volunteered to accept that. Deliveries for those who have barriers, whether it be physical, they don't have transportation or whatever, we will take care of that. Food milk vouchers, bag lunches, food for school children, some hygiene products. Those are not in the normal provision of what we want to give our clients. These are things that are extra, but we make it available. Now, residents, where do people live that we serve? 37% live in the municipality, and 63% live in Bridgewater. Now, client visits. As you can see by picture in front of you, 2023, it was almost 10,000. 2024, 12,000. And unfortunately, we didn't have the numbers at the time that all of this was made up to send out to you people. We only had 11 months, but we were getting close to 12,000. Now, I have to say that the one thing that I found out this year, you always hear of the perfect storm. Well, I think we got hit with the perfect storm. We got hit with such a jump in clients, and we got hit with such a jump in the cost of food, which has made a significant indentation in our reserves to be able to maintain what we're doing right now. Here's the situation in regard to our surplus deficit. As you can see, we have dropped down pretty close to $80,000 from the end of 2024. So that just goes to show what has transpired this past year. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't see much of a change for next year. Okay, challenges. Food insecurity and the needs of our residents exceeds our revenue. This year, we had a lot of donations that were down. Corporate donations were down. Personal donations were down. And to a great degree, I can understand that, where you consider what the price of food has been this past year. I think everybody has felt the pinch, some more than others, and certainly the people that come to the food bank. We have people that do tend to come to the food bank that actually work full-time. But because of the minimum wage, there's just absolutely no way that they can manage without coming to the food bank for help. Now, the deficit, of course, that we've had this past year, that will be funded by the use of funds the food bank has been saving for a building expansion. Now, the main reason for the building expansion was because we just need an area, because when we buy, we want to buy in bulk. And when you buy in bulk, you get somebody that's got a hot deal on something, you want to get as much as you possibly can. The difficulty is the fact that right now we don't have a lot of room in there. And we were hoping to be able to do an expansion. But unfortunately, we just don't have the funds. We have to maintain the funds that we have so that we do not change the time frame that people can come to the food bank. We want them to be able to come once every 2 weeks. We don't want it once every 3 weeks. We don't want it once every 4 weeks. There are other food banks that do that, but we're trying to maintain them once every 2 weeks. And of course, as I mentioned, the increase in cost storage, if we could go and get an 18-wheeler to come in with about 6 pallets or 8 pallets of a particular product or a mixture of products at a reduced price, that would be the ideal situation. But unfortunately, because of our situation right now, we cannot do that. Refrigeration for meat, and well, that would be the freezer. Sometimes we just don't have the space in order for us to be able to get what we want. So sometimes what we actually end up doing is asking some of the grocery stores if they could help us out in using some of the freezer space. So it's a trying time. It limits the ability to receive increased food donations from Feed Nova Scotia. Last week we received 6 pallets. I wish some of you had been there to see what a mess it was, just trying to get 6 pallets of food into our receiving area. So it's difficult. We manage. But again, as I say, the most important thing is our clients, and to make sure that they get that 3 to 5 days of food that they need and get it at least once every 2 weeks. Our ask. Building reserve will depleted if we keep concentrating on if we keep the amount of food going out to our clients and the donations going down. Operations will not be sustainable at current levels. I'm not saying that we would cut everything off today or tomorrow. I'm just saying, as time progresses, we're going to find that what we had in reserve, we're going to deplete. This could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. I don't want to get into a situation like that, and I think it would be just like you, as council, you wouldn't want to see the municipality get into a situation whereby if you have a surplus, you'd want to see that surplus deplete if you can possibly help it. So what we're asking from the food bank for a 2026 ask is $20,000. And $20,000, if you look at it from the standpoint of what did we receive last year, we received, believe, $164,000 in cash. So $20,000 would be a big help. Now, to let you know, it's not just donations of money that we get. We get Feed Nova Scotia. They deliver goods, as I've mentioned before. We get 2 deliveries, and I think I'm repeating myself maybe, but 2 deliveries every month. And sometimes there could be 4 pallets, there could be 5 pallets, there could be 3 pallets of goods. So anything that you may be able to help us out with, we would certainly appreciate it. Now, this is up to you, Mayor. If anybody wants to ask questions.
Yes. We'll open it up for discussion. What we do tonight, John, is hear and receive the report, the request, and then it becomes part of a decision-making process. I think this will factor into our budget process.
Yeah.
Our budget target date is approval at the end of March, but the documentation and the discussion will be ongoing over the next several months. So
No,
we'll
I
factor it
anticipate.
into our discussion. So we do have some hands up, and we'll start with Councillor Moore.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Being from a community that has its own food bank also north of the 103 here, I know Feed Nova Scotia donations are going down all the time.
Yes.
And it's a very sad situation. Apparently, you are presenting to Bridgewater Town Council next week, am I correct?
25th?
Okay, or whatever week that is.
I think that is.
Yeah. So do you have an amount that you're going to ask them for also?
I'm going to double it.
Okay, thank you. All
Well,
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, 33% of our clientele is from the municipality.
Right.
So twice as much is from
Right.
Bridgewater. So
All right.
that's
Okay.
what I'm going to be asking for.
Thank you so much.
And by the way, just you mentioned about Feed Nova Scotia, you know, their donations are going down. They've just got a big boost from the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission.
Okay, good. But
And I think some of us might have helped that out.
thank
Well, I
you.
noticed you were over there.
Councillor Hubley, you're next.
Sorry about that. That
That's
was from the
better.
sale of the U.S. product, and I
Yes, it
helped.
was.
I helped.
Yes, it was.
So Councillor Moore asked my question, so what I just want to say thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you very much. And believe it or not, we do it because we like to do it. And there is not one person that's being paid in the food bank. Okay.
Councillor Oikel?
Thank you. I certainly echo the sentiment that we do appreciate all that the food bank does for our residents. I do have a question. Two questions, I guess. My second one will depend on your first one. Do you own the building?
Yes,
So have you applied to our municipality as well as the town of Bridgewater for operational or capital grants so that you can free up some of that money that you were going to use for those types of things, but instead you would be able to use them for food?
well, what I'd like to do is ask for capital, but the problem being, the amount of money that's going to be required, I think we would prefer if we could ask for money for food. Food is a critical item right now, although, as I say, if we keep going the way we're going, we don't know where it's going to end up. We really have no idea.
That's
no-
the exemption that town gives us right now.
Right, the town, mind you, now the town of Bridgewater actually give us an exemption for taxes. Okay, so that's $7,000.
For the structure.
Yeah, but we would love to be able to sell our facility right now and get somewhere where we could, it would be bigger and we could streamline it the way it should be streamlined. But unfortunately, there's absolutely no way with the price of everything as it is right now. We just can't, we just couldn't build anything.
But you said that you have some money though, right?
We
That
do.
you have, and right now you're using that money to buy food,
Yes, we are.
correct?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And we also receive food from our grocery stores. And, you know, they've been very generous to us, all of them. So, you know, we're pleased. And as I say, with the amount of food that, if I were to put a price tag on the amount of food between Feed Nova Scotia and what we spend and what the grocery stores end up giving us, I would say we're in the vicinity of $600,000 to $700,000.
Follow up, if you don't mind. So I'm not saying anything, like, I'm just really, the $2,000 or however much money you need for food, but I am concerned about your building. Because if you don't have a building and you're not upkeeping your building, right? And so I just want you to think about that too, right?
Well-
You know, so that maybe there are grants that can help a little bit with something.
There
You know?
are there are grants that possibly could help us out. Ours is it's the old veterinary clinic right across, which is solid, I guess, block, cinder block. So structurally, it's sound. We've had half a new roof put on about 8 years ago. Everything looks fine at this stage of the game. There could be other problems, and I think thinking of water problems that we would undoubtedly have to pay for. But again, nothing. There's not. I don't think there's anything that isn't working right now. Okay, so and we are keeping an eye on everything, and you know, if we need it, again, it's the same old story. I know that you've got so many things on your plate as far as other institutions or whatever that you have to look after. And, you know, I think we're all in the same boat. If we don't need it right now, okay, then, you know, and somebody else needs it more, I've always been the person to say, well, give it to the person that needs it most. But again, as I say, I think the people that need it the most right now are the people that are going hungry.
Thank you very much, John and Kevin, for your presentation tonight. But please convey to your board, and particularly to Suzanne, who's really the front person in dealing with clients, how much we appreciate the work that you do as volunteers and how important the work is in serving our residents, whether they be from the municipality or from the town. It's a necessary unfortunately, we have to recognize it as a necessary part of our community and really speaks to the needs that we need to find alternative ways to address, but we haven't been successful, given that you started in 1984.
Right. Well, remember, that was supposed to be strictly
I know,
temporary.
a temporary thing. It was a
Right.
long temporary. So thank you very much.
Well,
And
thank
as
you
I
very
said,
much for listening.
yeah, we'll include this in our budget considerations. I would like to move along on the agenda. We're going to move up 11.1.1, which is the Broad Cove Community Association Stewardship Agreement. Ms. Payne.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. So the topic that I'm bringing forth this evening, if I had have written the report to give you the entire background as to when this particular request from the community came, the report would have been many pages long. So I just want to stress that the fact that we have gotten to the point where the municipality made the decision to expropriate the land, and it went through the expropriation process, is now in ownership of the municipality. That in itself was a milestone, because we've tried various avenues to have that piece of property in the ownership of the municipality. So the fact that we're here tonight discussing the possibility of the municipality entering into a stewardship agreement with the Broad Cove Community Association to continue, and I would use that word continue, to steward the beach, the access to the beach at Broad Cove, because they have been doing it for many years, even though the property was owner unknown. It is truly a milestone. I feel like standing up and clapping my hands, because for these folks in the audience, it's been a long journey. And I often refer to myself, when I was here before and when I came back, this is one of the projects that's been hanging around, that's like that file that hasn't been able to be closed. So I feel like we're getting closer to the final chapter of the book, and maybe starting the new novel or new chapter with a possible stewardship agreement. So this particular project has a significance and attachment, because it has been a long journey for many. So with that background, I didn't follow my report at all. Just sharing some of the long-term history. I'm really here before council this evening for you to consider authorizing the mayor and the municipal clerk to sign the stewardship agreement that was part of your package with the Broad Cove Community Association for the purposes of managing the lands adjacent to the Broad Cove Beach. This is a stewardship agreement that our CIO drafted. It went back and forth a couple of times between myself and the association, and it in consultation with the association, their agreement with the stewardship agreement. So really what we're looking for tonight is that authorization so that we can get ink on the paper, and we can look moving forward to having that piece of property stewarded by this group, and really being able to institute the prohibited and the uses that would be allowed on the beach, and to continue the partnership with this particular group that we have had a long-lasting relationship around this particular piece of property. So with that, I think that probably summarizes it, and if there's any questions, I'll try my best.
So maybe we could ask Councillor Reinhardt to, I know she'd be delighted to put the motion on the floor, and then we can have any discussion.
Thank you. To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to sign the stewardship agreement with the Broad Cove Community Association for the purposes of managing the lands adjacent to the Broad Cove Beach, PID 605-92581, as presented. And I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Bell. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. I said to the folks from Broad Cove, we should have had a bottle of champagne to toast the event. But thank you to all that have worked on this. It's not hard to see from the faces how happy people are to have reached this milestone. I will be happy to sign the document, but it is the result of a lot of work over many years. We just get to tie the bow on it, as we did with Cape LaHave Island, which was another one we tied the bow on. So thank you for your work, and we look forward to the continued relationship working with not only Broad Cove, but other communities that are stepping up to work to provide facilities and recreation activities and areas within their community. It's really the direction that as a council we are really committed to moving and following the tradition that I think has already started here, but to really explore that in a more full way in the work we do going forward. So thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that it would be appropriate to recognize former Councillor Price and former Councillor Hustovich and their dedication to the municipality and especially their community, still working all these years as volunteers.
And you would have worked with them, Councillor Bell, over a number of those years? Yes, yes. It's lovely to have you with us tonight. Move on in our agenda, resuming where we skipped ahead to something maybe not quite as uplifting, but recommendations from committees and boards, dangerous and unsightly committee. And we have some recommendations coming from that committee, and we will have those presented.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we're starting off with 4388 Cornwall Road in Union Square. So some background, we received a complaint regarding the above noted property. An initial inspection was completed and the property was found to be dangerous and unsightly under the Municipal Government Act. A letter was sent to notify the owner. Minimal cleanup was completed at the time of reinspection. An order to clean up the property was drafted and posted. The property occupant asked for the order to be extended by an additional 30 days. Unfortunately, over the summer, an individual attempted to demolish the house, which prompted multiple visits, and a 14-day cleanup order was issued, due in part to concerns about potential arson during a fire ban. When the order expired, we confirmed that no cleanup had occurred. An RFQ was issued and 10 quotes were received. The lowest quote was received from Stuart Lucas Incorporated. So the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee meeting in December 17th, the motion was made and passed to recommend to Council that we award the tender to Stuart Lucas Incorporated for the cleanup of the demolished house and property in the amount of $7,353.59. And I also just want to make note for record that there was a typo in my previous document that was presented in December, where one of the numbers in the document actually read $7,363, but it has been corrected to $7,353.
Thank you, Ms. Estabrook. Would someone put the motion on the floor, please? Councillor Smith.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and Council, I move that Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee and award RFQ 2025-01-312 for the cleanup of the demolished house and property located at 4388 Cornwall Road, Union Square, PID 602-84536 to Stuart Lucas Incorporated in the amount of $7,353.69 plus HST, subject to confirmation of WCB and insurance.
And seconded by Councillor Moore. Is there discussion on the motion? Councillor Oikel.
Yes, could someone please tell me what WCB stands for?
Workers' Compensation Board.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Smith.
I just wondered if there's any comment on, like, the stretch between the quotes received. Is there any concern about that? Because the lowest is 7,000, and then it goes all the way up to 50,000. It is a huge job.
It is
So
quite a jump.
I have had a few comments from people who've looked at this and said, how is it going to be done? At 7,000, and I trust that, you know, when the tenders come in, you score them, and can you just tell me a little bit about how it's confirmed that the project is feasible at that price?
It's a very good question. Basically, with our policy, we usually recommend that it goes to the person who has the qualification, the coverages, the insurance, and who has the lowest bid. And it's incumbent on that individual or company to ensure that they have priced it appropriately. So it's our hope that they're not going to lose money, I would guess, but it would be their responsibility to eat the cost if they do, basically.
Any other, Counselor Smith?
Just a follow-up. This is a demolished structure, but there may be parts of it that are still, could be salvageable. In terms of, I'm talking about the basement or the foundation, as well as a functioning septic, or well, when a contractor is doing work on this kind of property, are there any kinds of provisions to help protect the assets that remain, if that's clear?
Every effort would be made to not damage any well or septic, if at all possible. It would be the responsibility to ensure that there's no hole left in the ground, because that would pose a dangerous situation. So the foundation would be filled in.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of approving the motion as presented signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. So the next property is,
I just want to give you advance notice that 10.1.3 has a cut and paste error. So while we're dealing with 10.1.2, it'll give Ms. Estabrooks or someone else a chance to fix that.
Thank you very much for that.
okay. Sorry? On my document, it isn't.
No, it's
Oh, okay.
it's the motion sheet.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe you just carry on, Amanda, and we'll
Okay.
get that sorted out for the next one. Thank you, Counselor Bell.
So this is in reference to 68 Cove Road in Conkerell Bank. We received a complaint regarding the above noted property. An initial inspection was completed and the property was found to be dangerous and unsightly. We issued a letter, no cleanup was done. An order was issued providing the property owner with 30 days to clean up. The property owners submitted a request to the municipality to assume the responsibility for the demolition and cleanup, acknowledging that the cost would be applied as a lien against the property, and if unpaid after 3 years, could result in the property being listed for tax sale. So at the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee meeting where that was discussed, a motion was made and passed to issue a 7-day order to proceed with the owner's request for a demolition order and cleanup. When I returned, when I posted the order, the structure actually deteriorated further. An RFQ was issued. We received 10 quotes. The lowest quote was received from Stewart Lucas Incorporated.
So at the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee meeting in December, a motion was made and passed to recommend to council that we award the tender from Stuart Lucas Incorporated in the amount of $8,771.93 plus HST.
Would someone put the motion on the floor? Councillor Bell.
Thank you to Mayor McLean-Weil and MODL Council. I move that Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee and award RFQ 2025-01-314 for the demolition and cleanup of the property located at 68 Cove Road, Conquerall Bank, PID number 60337169, to Stuart Lucas Incorporated in the amount of $8,771.93 plus HST, subject to confirmation of WCB and insurance. I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Moore. And Councillor Moore, go ahead.
Each one of these has confirmation of WCB and insurance. If confirmation of those are not available or they do not have it, do we go to the next lowest bidder, or do we come back to Dangerous and Unsightly and go for more tenders?
Yeah, our understanding is that this contractors will be getting those documentation, but was waiting to hear about the award prior to moving forward, but we wanted to have that as condition. If for whatever reason that they don't have that, then we will not be proceeding with a purchase order. So we would have to go to the next lowest bid.
Thank you.
So we would be coming back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Oikle.
So part of the RFQ was that they should have WCB and insurance, but am I to understand from what you just said, this company even does not have those, but yet they still put in a bid and we were still looking at it?
Yeah, so they've provided, they have their quotes for those services, but they don't have them yet. So if they are awarded, our understanding is that they will, our expectation is that they have them, or staff won't be able to issue the purchase order to that company.
Just follow up, maybe with Tom, maybe. So when the RFQ was put out, the fact that all the companies should have WCB and insurance was not that part of the RFQ? And if it was, and they don't have it, then how, I just know that in the past, when different companies don't have specific things for RFQs, then they're not considered. So I'm just wondering why in particular.
Thank you for the question. So the difference is that this is not a tender and it's not an RFP. It's a request for quotations. So if they're required to have workers' compensation benefits, then prior to entering into a purchase order, which is our form of contract, they'd have to provide proof of coverage. So they would get a letter of good standing with WCB along with the required insurance. And upon provision of those, assuming council passes a motion to award, that would allow staff to proceed with issuing the purchase order and having the work done.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And the final recommendation from Dangerous and Unsightly.
Okay, so our final is a property on Dory Mills Road, PID 60226453. We received a complaint regarding the above noted property. An initial inspection was completed and the property was found to be dangerous and unsightly. A letter was sent. Owner requested an additional time, and we gave them a 30-day extension. After a return visit, an order was issued and posted. Ownership changed, and we visited the site and granted another 30 days. However, at a follow-up visit, no further progress had been made. So an RFQ was issued, 8 quotes were received, and at the meeting in December, a motion was made and passed to recommend to council that we award the tender to Stuart Lucas Incorporated in the amount of $3,939 plus HST.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Vino. Yeah.
Would you like me to bring the motion forward?
Yes, please, but knowing that it's revised here. Okay, thank you.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council approve the lowest bid from Stuart Lucas Incorporate for the cleanup at the property located at Dory Mills Road, Clearland, PID 60226453. That is $3,939 plus HST, subject to confirmation of WCB and insurance, and I so move.
And a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Hubley. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We'll move to the Finance Department and Ms. Wenzel with interest adjustment consideration for the Centre Scolaire de la Rive-Sud.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to give you a little background on this particular account. So school boards are billed sewer, municipal sewer charges at our municipal sewer charge rate. And that's based on their assessment. So the school next door, the Rive-Sud, had been in operation for quite some time, almost 10 years, before we discovered that we hadn't been billing them sewer charges. So we started that process. There were some issues. They weren't expecting a bill. We were late in the year the first time we billed it. The CAO got involved, so we decided, okay, we won't bill that fiscal, it's closed, but we will move forward and start issuing sewer bills. So there's a lot of overdue interest charges related to these sewer bills because eventually they did start paying them. They did not pay the interest. So I was recently contacted by the Director of Education, Funding and Partnerships at the Nova Scotia Department of Finance and Treasury, which they shared a memo saying that municipal sewer charges should be paid, but that those departments were not to pay interest. We were previously unaware of this directive. So we have already had a direction from council previously to continue to charge interest. I think we met with this council a few years ago about the interest charges on this account. As probably we discussed a little while ago, that Section 38 of the MGA does allow municipal council to write off interest charges or amounts that we deem uncollectible based on the information that we have been recently shared. It appears that these interest charges are uncollectible. The interest charges right now sit at just over $28,000. They've been accruing for 5 years. So council does have an option not to make any adjustments or to direct staff to make the adjustment and no longer charge interest on these school sewer invoices going forward.
Could we have the motion put on the floor and then we'll have a discussion? Okay. Councillor Burns.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council direct staff to write off interest related to the sewer billing for the Centre Scolaire, always pronounce this wrong, de la Rive-Sud in the amount of $28,664.53.
And a seconder for the motion, please, and then we can have a discussion. Seconded by Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore.
So my question is, the school boards are invoiced for municipal sewer charges. So the school boards pay all the sewer charges for all the schools that are on MODL sewers. Is there ever, have we looked at if there is interest on any of the other school ones?
Through to your worship, the other school boards do pay their sewer bills on time. So we do not have any interest accruing on any of those bills.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Question to Elaine, through you, please. The interest that is showing here as being due, is that the amount that has accumulated since they were aware that they were paying or required to pay sewer rates? Or does it include any amount prior to that?
Yes, through to your worship, to Councillor Bell, this interest is only on the invoices that we issued after that very first initial one. So we started in 2020, November 19th was that first bill. The 2019 bill, the year before, we wrote that one off. That was actually the year where your global sewer rate changed. It went from 73 cents down to 43 cents, I believe. So it was a significant differential. But yes, these interest charges are just what's due on those bills. And as you can see, like, we issued 2 years worth of bills before the first payment came in 2022, when they started paying their bills. So we've only had a couple of years where they actually paid within the 30 days.
So it would appear that some schools are able to pay on time, and this particular one can't, which seems to me to be sloppy bookkeeping. I don't feel that I should be extending them forgiveness for this. I hear the same thing from truckers or other ones who say, I won't work for the province anymore because I don't get paid for 9 months. So I will be voting against forgiving this. That's just how I feel.
Councillor Hubley and then Councillor Oikle.
I feel the same way as Councillor Bell. I agree, because it's a provincial board, it probably is not collectible. But to me, it's a perfect example of double standards, one for government entities and one for residents, and sometimes I just shake my head. It never seems fair to me. Because I'm never in favor of double standards, I'd like to see us argue this case, and I will not be supporting the motion either.
Councillor Oikle.
Thank you. So I'm in agreement as far as that. I think that they should pay it. However, I just want to, excuse me, to confirm that you said, the province said that we cannot charge them interest.
Through to your worship, to answer Councillor Oikle's question, we were given an interdepartmental memo, which I did include in your agenda package, from Deputy Minister LaFlèche at the time, who was quite clear that, like, they were, I think probably, it appears to me that the schools were complaining about sewer charges across the province, because all of them get billed for sewer. A lot of them are billed exactly the way that we do it, which is by assessed value. And it looks to me like they were thinking there should be a long-term approach. Now, we didn't, and my understanding, there was no discussion with the municipalities on this, but his directive at the time was, there's a long-term approach, but right now you should pay them, but just don't pay the interest charges. So there's a directive by the deputy minister to those boards not to pay the interest. So, I mean, we certainly could argue the case, but it appears to me that they're not going to. And perhaps someone else has some more insight than I do.
Do you? We have a couple of councillors, Deputy Mayor Vino and then Councillor Smith, but if you have something to add.
Yeah, just some more history from the provincial perspective, that there was an inconsistent approach across the province. So some schools recognized they were receiving a direct service. There were user fees being charged of them, and so they were paying them, and other schools weren't. And so municipalities as a collective raised this as an issue. Why aren't all schools paying for the sewer service that they receive? So the interdepartmental memo was the province's attempt to try and come to a point of agreement between the province and the municipalities to say, yes, we recognize this is a fee for service, we will pay it. We're not going to pay interest on all of the disputes there. So I think as your Director of Finance is trying to lay out for you, we will not ever collect this interest.
Deputy Mayor Vino.
Thank you. If I owed property taxes and there was interest on property taxes and I came in to make a payment, the payment would hit the interest first before it would hit the principal. In this case, with the school, would the payment not hit that interest first before the principal? Do you understand what I'm trying to compare it to? If you make a payment on something that has interest, wouldn't it grab that interest first, kind of like as a catch, before it would hit that principal?
Yes, through the mayor to Deputy Mayor Vino. Yes, there's a section of the MGA that does talk about property taxes and exactly how they are paid. The sewer is not exactly the same as a property tax, but yes, a property tax is very clear when you bill it. Interest gets paid first because it forms part of the bill. And that's laid out very clearly in the MGA. The sewer is a little bit grayer, and because the school sewers are billed on a exempt assessment, right? They're not even billed on a taxable assessment. They're billed on an exempt assessment. So it makes it a little bit grayer. So in our opinion, we were like, okay, as long as we can continue to calculate the interest to collect the principal, we'll keep the interest outstanding and keep arguing with them to get it. So that was, and it's also not billed like a tax bill. It's billed as a miscellaneous bill. So for those reasons, it's a little, there's only 3 of them. So they're easier for us to track on the interim, but you're exactly right. Property taxes are legislated by the MGA and we collect them in that manner.
Councillor Smith.
I was just going to note that I don't think we received the memo in our packages. Am I missing something? It's not, I can't find it in my package.
Was the provincial memo not attached to the, oh, not in the agenda package? I did attach it when I sent it to be put together, but I did not see. I'm so sorry. I can circulate it.
I would just be interested in seeing that.
Yep, that's
Thanks.
certainly.
Councillor Moore.
A question that's related but not related, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do nursing homes get billed the same way? Do nursing homes pay on exempt taxes, exempt, and then the sewer is like, can you explain that to me?
Because could we leave that, this is beyond the motion. Could
I
we
know,
leave
but
that
it's going to,
You can ask it afterwards.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question?
I don't know what to do.
Well, you have to decide.
Gee, thanks, girl.
All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Those opposed? Councillor Bell, Councillor Hubley, Deputy Mayor Vino, and Councillor Brooks. Motion is carried. We will move on, and Councillor Moore, perhaps you could ask the question about the nursing home to Director of Finance afterwards.
Okay. Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Thank you.
We'll move to the draft capital budget update and draft operating budget assumptions and communication plan related to the budget. Ms. Wenzel.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McLean. While I did put this information on slides for you so that it might be a little bit easier to follow because it's quite a wordy 2 pages. So hopefully that will come up here in a second. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as per your budget schedule, we're bringing to you some draft capital budget updates. There's a few for your information and for discussion. So I didn't give you the whole capital budget again. You've received that once, so these are just some of the projects that have some updates to them. So the first one is the Cookville wastewater treatment plant. We had originally budgeted in year 1 and 2, I think it was 6.5 million in the current year. It looks like we're going to be in 25-26, but we're going to be closer to 12 million in this current fiscal year, just because there's an accelerated construction schedule, so they're moving forward much quicker, which is good. That means they're going to be finished quicker. So that just changes the differentials that we're going to be forecasting. 12 million in the current year, looking for 9 million in the upcoming 26-27 capital budget. The total didn't change. The 24.5 million total didn't change. It just means that we're paying for it quicker because it's being constructed quicker. So this is a new one, the annual large pump replacement program. We've usually had $20,000 a year in the budget for that. Engineering thought they weren't going to need to do it in the upcoming fiscal. However, in December, they used the spare pump at the New Germany treatment plant. So they were looking to buy a replacement just to make sure that they have one they can use at multiple pump stations. So they're asking that $20,000 be added back in the 5-year plan for next year. The Osprey Village Sidewalk Enhancement Project, they're looking to carry over $125,000 from the current year, knowing that they're not quite finished with the project this year that they wanted to get done, that part of it. So it's moving from 5 million to 5.125 in the next fiscal. This is the same thing with the Saw Pit Park construction. They're looking to carry over $100,000 from 25-26. And so the budget next year will be 2.1 million and not 2 million. It doesn't change the construction. It was just more of carrying over those concept plan things that they're working on. And so those are the actual capital budget updates. If it pleases council, I can move on to operating, unless there's any questions on capital.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate now to ask another question about the capital budget. I missed asking the question when it first came before us, but it took me a minute to realize that there was something missing in the 5-year capital plan, and that was the money that we had projected spending for the coming year on consultation and planning for Mushamash Beach Park. And what it was in the 5-year capital plan that we would do consultation and planning in this coming year, and then replace the vault washrooms in the next year. And so what I see in the 5-year capital plan right now is that we have money to replace the vault washrooms, but there's nothing around that planning piece. And I think everyone will remember, we had quite a conversation about the washrooms at Mush around this time last year. And there had been money in the, try to get these numbers right, 24-25 budget for vault washrooms. 190K was put aside. And then it was decided that, or it was recommended to council that not only did we think that those washrooms were going to go over budget, so the department was reluctant to put out a tender for engineering, but also we weren't sure where they were going to go in the park. And our conversation that day was all about planning. Like, we want to orient ourselves towards planning for parks. So there was a commitment from us to do some planning at Mush in the coming budget year, and then the spending on the vault washrooms in the next year, which I believe is in the budget. So I'm just asking where that 50K went, and if we could put it back.
Is this to the park standards?
Ms. Payne.
I'll try to answer this as best that I can. Yes, and Councillor Smith had reached out to me with that question. And Council can correct me if I'm wrong. Part of my response to Councillor Smith was part of the reason why we didn't carry over or continue with the 50,000 for the MUSH consultation is it was staff's understanding that we were presenting the parks evaluation criteria, and then you'd be making decisions on what investments that park evaluation criteria framework is to help guide you. There was decisions already made around the Mark and Wiles Lake and Saw Pit. We were already making progress on that. And so that is part of the reason of why it was not included. And for that matter, no other park, because I was waiting for the further direction from council after that park's evaluation criteria was established. Because that could determine that there's a park that should be looked at beforehand, or yes, indeed, it should be MUSH next. So that was part of the explanation as to why it wasn't included. That could change. It's a 5-year capital plan. Based on when we go through the parks evaluation criteria, I suspect that the 5-year capital plan will change. And it could see parks that's not in there now that needs to be in there, and vice versa. That was part of the explanation.
That isn't quite how I remember it, but we can have a discussion about that. But Councillor Bell, you're next.
I do think we also have staff working on certain items that haven't come before us for discussion yet, and we have to keep in mind that at least 2 of them are larger bills. That 50,000 may very well be gobbled up very quick if we are to look at items that will be coming forward to us. I just want to refresh our memories on that. And the explanation that I was just given, I didn't quite remember it that way either.
My understanding, and I stand to be corrected, was that the evaluation criteria were to be used to evaluate 4 particular park areas that we had not, that were, I'll say, up in the air as to how we proceed, what would needed to be done, and they would be applied to those particular parks. We have standards set for the parks now in terms of what amenities are to be included. I did not understand it that way, but Councillor Bell is saying he didn't remember it that way. I don't know how others recall it. Councillor Oikel.
I do recall the conversation that Councillor Smith mentioned, and that I believe it wasn't with Trudy, it was with engineering at the time, and that the bathroom wasn't going to go in because they didn't know where to put it, and that this year they were going to figure that all out through a consultation process so that it could go in 26, 27 is what I understood. And referring to the parks, I also understood it as you and Councillor Bell had mentioned.
So the challenge with the criteria is I'm not sure when we're going to finalize those, because they have been, we've seen them, we saw them at our strategic planning refresh in late or mid-November, whenever it was, maybe it was October, in the late fall, but it hasn't come back to council yet for a review and an adoption. So I'm not sure where this leaves us. I think it points out that there's, as we know, the discussion around parks is a challenging discussion, and what we decided, I think, was the guideline to go forward. But there were some outstanding items that were carried over from previous council decisions. And it is within our right to change that or to adapt it and to recognize that there was a need, but maybe we need to refresh it. So I'm not sure where this leaves us in terms of the discussion, other than we'll have to have a clarification, I think, about our understanding of how those evaluation criteria, what their intent was. And going forward, I could see how they could be used, but I think as this council's work was around how we could best make decisions about those 4 particular parks that were on the list and how we deal with those, and then go forward from there. So if we've misdirected staff or there's been a miscommunication, then we need to figure that out and figure out how we apply that in the budget process, given that I'm not sure we're going to be able to adopt those criteria in a way that's going to be useful for the budget process. Do you want to weigh in?
So it's coming to policy.
Okay. I'm told that the criteria are coming to policy and strategy next week, so it may very well be that we will have some guidance.
And there's still lots of discussion on the capital.
We are, I won't say 3 months out, we're now 2 months out from a final decision, which gives us time. But I know how these discussions, how difficult these discussions are, because we all have pretty strong opinions about our park development, and rightly so. It's an important part of our infrastructure here in this district. So we need to make sure we've got time to do it, that our staff have time to prepare well for the discussion, and that we're in a place to make good decisions about that with recommendations for budget. So perhaps we could leave it, Councillor Smith, for the policy and planning discussion, because I'm not sure we're not really in a position tonight to make, I think, a good recommendation on this.
Yeah, I would just ask people to take a look at the special planning, the special meeting that we had on parks and strategic planning towards the end of the meeting. That's where we had the conversation about MASH, just to refresh like where we all stood at that time and the commitments that we made, because I'd just like us to have a shared understanding of this issue as we go forward. But I'm happy to bring it up at policy and strategy. But I am concerned, if we don't know where the washrooms are going, then are we not able to do the washrooms in 26, 27? You know, like, let's not set ourselves up to push this further down the road. That's my...
And I apologize if I misunderstood around, I thought this was a document that would guide decisions in parks overall, so I apologize if that's was a misinterpretation on my part, and of course I take direction from council. So as the CAO has already indicated, the budget hasn't been approved yet, so I would say there's still time to revisit that.
Councillor Smith, do you feel you're okay?
I'm happy to continue the conversation, policy and strategy.
We'll bring it back. It'll be on part of the discussion next week when we start into those evaluation criteria. Okay? Any other points people want to, or I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Wenzel.
Certainly, if council's happy to leave the capital update from there, or if there's any other changes you want to see in the capital budget, that the next round, I mean, we certainly have, that's why we are here tonight. So if you want, we can wait till next week, till you have your big parks discussion, to see if anything else comes up that might get added back through.
I would suggest we leave parks till we have that discussion next week, but I think Councillor Smith has another point.
Yes, I just have another proposal, and people might find it odd coming from me, but the proposed amount for $50,000 for Art on the Trails next year, I would just like to suggest that we hold off on that until we go through the process of getting a public art policy in place and then we work on setting a budget for public art. I really want to protect this piece that we're working on, and I think that the point that was made about making a bigger spend attracts some really quality projects. But I'm also not sure that we need to make those big spends every year to have a quality program. And it might actually lead to a more robust and program that people support if we're doing it every couple of years. But I'm just suggesting that maybe we hold off on making another big spend until the public art policy is in place. So I don't know when decisions get made, but I just wanted to kind of plant that seed going forward.
Other points people want to raise on the capital budget? Okay, let's move on then to the operating budget assumptions.
Yes, thank you. So as we're working towards bringing the operating budget to council next month, early next month, there are some assumptions that we kind of make, going forward so that we can bring you a good plan. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, for example, we're going to be looking at using a cost of living or our CPI budget estimate of 3%. We think that's probably reasonable, given what costs are going up. Maybe it's a little low, but we're quite sure 3% overall probably will be the right number. One of the other assumptions is that there will be no change in tax rates. So this draft budget will be prepared with the existing tax rates. If council wants to see other tax rate options, those are things we'd like to know now so that we can prepare for that, knowing that we don't have a lot of time between when we bring the budget to you in the middle of February and have it passed just over a month later. And the third thing is that we do make some annual contributions from our reserves through the operating fund that come directly out of your operating fund, and we're proposing no changes to those. So things like our election reserve, where we take $50,000 a year, it's kind of a smoothing thing so that every year, by the time the election comes, we have $200,000 to spend on an election. Our open space reserves, part of the open space strategy is to take $60,000 a year out of the operating budget and put it into that reserve. And right now that we're balanced, we're forecasting 820 there, 820,000 at the end of 2026, which would make 880,000 by the end of March 2027. Our sewer system reserves, you see those used sometimes in some of the capital expenditures that we have that run through the sewer system. We put 175,000 a year through our operating budget for that. The fire training facility reserve, another 100,000 for that. Municipal road reserves, 25,000 a year. As well, we set up what we call the LCLC depreciation reserve, which is an amount, 165,000 a year, that will, build a reserve in case there's a major capital expenditure at the LCLC. And as well, we put in a contribution towards our depreciation, which sits at 1.6 million. So those like depreciation reserve is one of those things that we kind of use as our down payment for capital expenditures, so that we can, if we do have to borrow, some of the monies can come from that. It's certainly not the full cost at replacement, but it does give us some funds to use. So if there's any changes that council would like to see in these assumptions, we're certainly happy to incorporate them in the draft budget that we're bringing on the 12th of February.
Any comments, questions? I have a question about the LCLC depreciation reserve. What is that based on?
Through your worship, I was a number that we came up with that we thought was affordable through the operating budget at the time when we set it a few years ago, maybe 2018, maybe. I don't know exactly the date. We have used it. We've used it when there was a big capital work done a few years ago at the LCLC. We did dip into those funds to put the municipal contribution in. But we thought it was prudent to save some monies towards capital improvements to the LCLC, knowing that that facility needs to be maintained. So we didn't really have a big plan because we don't know, they don't budget the way that we do. Like I do like a 5-year plan, I see what our costs are going to be. But we just thought it was prudent to have some monies in reserve in case something came up.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the decision to put money aside. I think that's very prudent, but given that the facility is 10-plus years old, and just with 1 year experience sitting at the table, hearing the kinds of things that are in need there, it seems like we perhaps need the LCLC to have a good plan for asset management, but we also need to have our plan for the reserve aligned with them. So I guess through all of us who sit on that, we need to be planning, encouraging better planning on the part of the replacement of and repair of assets, because as it's happened now, things happen and the LCLC has no reserve.
And if you don't mind, Your Worship, one of the things that we did decide when we did put this in place, because I was here, you're right, the LCLC doesn't have a reserve, but it's 100% funded by the 2 municipal units. So really, it's incumbent on the 2 municipal units to make sure that they're saving for the future of the LCLC. And you're right, a good asset management plan at the LCLC would inform what those 2 units should be putting away for future capital expenditures or emergencies should they arise.
Because at this stage, from here on, we're going to start to see already some significant capital investment required there. And I'm not sure we may be better, we have at least taken some steps, but I'm not sure as a collective, meaning that the organization, the LCLC, together with its partners that put the funds in, have really planned for that piece. And I want to be on record as saying we need to do that. And for those representatives that sit at the table as board members at the LCLC, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that this happen, because we have a facility that if it starts to look poorly, we're going to hear about it, and there's been such a huge investment over the years. It's incumbent on us to take care of it, and if you get behind in the repairs, it's very hard to catch up, and the facility will start to look its age, and I don't think any of us want that to happen. So enough of my preaching, but I think we all are aware of it, but we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but we need to get there, because it's really starting to show up that the costs are going to be there for the repairs, and they're not going to be tens of thousands of dollars. Most of them are hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. So, Councillor Oikel.
Thank you. This may seem like a frivolous thing compared to all these other things on the reserve that we're reserving money for, but in 3 budgets from now, in 2029, the municipality will be 150 years old. And I'm just wondering at what point we will be putting money away for a celebration of our municipality. I just wanted to bring that up. At what point would we start to do a little bit of putting money away?
It's a good point, but I'm not sure we need to think about it in the capital, but we're talking about operating, and in operating we go year to year, and as opposed to thinking about that as requiring, I guess it depends on how big a celebration, Councillor Oikel, you're planning to have.
I don't know how much was spent on the last one, when it was 100 years or 125. I know that the municipality did do something. And I'm just thinking of, as a reserve, I don't know if it would count as as an operating reserve to put a little bit away or not. I'm just making that suggestion.
Other comments? I know we had a discussion about this last year, but it's a bit of a thorn in my side, is how we apply cost of living, CPI, to our operating budget. And the 3%, I looked today, and the release of the numbers, the national numbers, are January 19th, which I think becomes the kind of the benchmark. Currently, Nova Scotia, it's 2.4 when you break it down by province, and for nationally, it's 2.2. And in some ways, the cost of the CPI is based on what I consider consumer durables and food, shelter, gas, which are very much consumer-driven as opposed to the kind of work we do. I see on capital, there might even be a different, and that maybe that gets factored into the capital budgeting that's done by the various people doing projects within the municipality. But on our operating budget, I just wonder about that number. And given that it's based on something that's related to more of a consumer market as opposed to what we do, I would like your comment on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand I use the budget estimate, that 3%, because in the financial model that we have, you have to start putting percentages in so it can figure out where you're going to be in the next 5. And the model will do 10 years, but 10 years is so far out, it doesn't do a good job of 10. But it asks for percentages. And I always thought that, am I overestimating, am I underestimating, some things might not go up a lot, maybe they'll go up 2%. Energy, it looks like maybe Nova Scotia Power might go up 4%. Because we hear those rate hearings right now that they're having, that they're looking at 4%, I think, on the commercial industrial side, even though the residential isn't going to go up that much. I think that's the number I heard. So I feel like it's just like it's hit or miss. And before COVID, I could have used 2% every year, and I would have been very, very close. But nowadays, it's not so much. So I'm just trying to balance it. Like I could pull out energy and say, all the utilities will be at this, and I could pull out what we have for our personnel costs, knowing what those contracts say, and we'll pick a number for that. So I could go very, very down in the weeds. I just trying to use one number as an overall, hoping that I'll catch it all. But it's an estimate, it's a plan. Like RCMP, we haven't had an RCMP bill that's hit cost of living for years. It usually runs around 6%. So it's hard.
I know that, almost half our budget is something that we have no control over, 46% or something. And out of that, education, and I think I've been told it's like 5%. We're expecting a 5% increase on that. And as you say, on policing, we don't know, and we didn't even have the figure when we approved our budget last year. We didn't have a final number. So I understand that. But on the other side, on the other half, plus or minus, of our budget, I ask the question, and I will continue to ask that question, because I look at that number, and it's just, we keep factoring in these percentage increases, and at some point I say, what if we just said, let's hold it? Let's hold it on the things that we can. There's some that are out of our control, but what if we said, so if we even take 0.5% out of our, out of our budget, it's more than $200,000. So, that's 4 bathrooms in a park, I look at it in a very rough way, but every year we continue to recognize that, and I understand that, but somehow we need to control that as well.
and I guess if I could say something like I'm working on my operating budgets, for example, right now. And one of the things I look at are contracts. So if we have contracted amounts that we've negotiated, whether through, our request for or proposals or things like that, then, our software, this is how much it's going to cost, or, our IT budget, or things like that. Like obviously that's approved by the board, for the shared service. But, I didn't increase any of my staff training, for example. I don't put 3% on that. There's things that we do hold the line on. But when I'm looking for this budget estimate, 3%, it's for me to do the long-range planning, just so that I have some increase. But you're right, there's lots of things that don't increase. And we are very cognizant of that when we do our budgeting, that there are accounts you'll see that won't change. And if we don't use the monies, we tend to reduce budgets. We've done that before too. So we're not taking every account and putting 3% on it, but I do use it as the long-term plan percentage, because I have to have something that assumes some kind of increase. I don't know if that's helpful.
Are there other questions? Okay. This will come back, and there's a plan for the communication of information on the budget. Are you speaking to that as well?
I am in the...
Given that we don't have a communication director right now?
That's correct, but our communications officer gave me this slide before she left to inform council of what the communication plan is for the budget. We know the Engage site is already created. There was a couple of typos on that we're working to correct. So we'll make sure that the agendas are released for the budget meetings. And when our new communications officer comes, sooner or later, we'll make sure that things get posted through Facebook and our app. We'll make sure there's messages from the mayor and the breaker. We'll have a budget highlights document of some type with the new person. And I'll work with the new communications person to get our budget book published. So all of those things will continue. There may be some staff doing some of these little parts in the interim before the new person comes, but the plan is to try to follow this.
Questions on that? Okay.
That's it.
Anything? Okay.
Just their next meeting dates. I just like to leave that in your mind. I know it's in your calendar, but it's good to make sure you know that on February the 12th, which is a night meeting and a Thursday, I believe, we are going to be introducing your draft operating budget. And then a few weeks later, on the 6th of March, we'll have an update and review of that in case we get any new numbers. And then we'll do our final review of all our budgets on March 24th with a hope to pass by March 31st.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move along to Administration Department. Second reading bylaw on police clearance certificate, application fees. Are you doing that?
Sure, I can give a quick summary. Our corporate services staff did some analysis for council, and ultimately council decided to repeal the bylaw, which required a fee in order for records checks to be done for employment purposes. So first reading was conducted in December, and tonight is on your agenda for second reading, which will repeal the bylaw.
Could someone put the motion on the floor? Councillor Smith.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council conduct second reading and adopt bylaw 017A, repeal of fees charged for police clearance certificate application, to repeal bylaw 017 police clearance certificate application fees as presented.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Vino. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. Planning and Development. Mr. Merrill.
Thank you, Your Worship. members of council, good evening. This item is to had an application from Eastlink to locate a communication tower in Oak Hill. This is adjacent to 569 Oak Hill Road. This one, so just for council's awareness, so the municipality has a policy on the siting of telecommunication towers that outlines submission requirements of the applicant, and and basically it makes sure that there's adequate public consultation that is given, and once that is complete, they can make an application, and the municipality will write a letter of concurrence once they've fulfilled those requirements. So in this case, Eastlink has a proposed tower. It's adjacent to the 569 Oak Hill Road. It's a 61-meter self-supporting telecommunication tower that the plan is to provide better service to the Oak Hill and surrounding area. And yeah, council, the public consultation has been completed, and council is required to do a motion to do a letter of concurrence, and that gets sent off to Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada.
Could we have the motion put on the floor? Councillor Bell.
To Mayor McLean-Weil, NMODL Council, I move that Municipal Council issue a letter of concurrence for the telecommunications tower at PID number 6024835 Oak Hill Road, Oak Hill, as the application has met the requirements of Policy 069 Antenna Setting Protocol. I so move.
And a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Hubley. Discussion on the motion. Deputy Mayor Vino.
Thank you. You answered some of this in your prelude to this motion, but I did have a couple residents reach out wondering why we're not putting up more towers. And I explained that that's not us, it's on the telecommunications company. However, from our end, we facilitate some of the planning of that and making sure that can move forward. Can you just highlight anything I might have missed to those who might be listening, wondering what our role is when it comes to cellular towers and services?
Yeah, our role's pretty minor. It is the industry that puts the towers up. They decide where the sites go. Our role is, because, I'm going to back up a bit. So municipal council does not have the authority to say the tower can't go here or there. Our role is strictly, we just want to make sure that the public are aware of the proposed tower site, and there's been proper consultation done on that. So that's what our policy, a number of years ago, council implemented that policy, and industry, sorry, they changed their name, but the federal government looks to the municipality to provide a letter of concurrence that says you're happy with the consultation that was done. But we have no ability to say we're approving that site, because at the end of the day, the federal government has the ultimate jurisdiction.
Councillor Smith.
I just wondered if you could clarify if you have any more information on the statement. This infrastructure will provide service to residents of Oak Hill, Day Spring, Bridgewater, and the surrounding areas. I know people in my area will be wanting to know, will this reach them? Will it improve service in other communities? What does surrounding areas mean?
Yeah, it's unfortunately you need a network of telecommunication towers to provide adequate coverage in the municipalities, so it's the surrounding area. Yeah, I don't have the, just looking at the file, I don't have it right in front of me about the coverage area. But yeah, so it's not going to cover the entire municipality. When they say Oak Hill and surrounding areas, like it's.
I would just point out that, like, Cornwall is not that far from Oak Hill. Was there a public information package that went out with the first public meeting that we could access? I tried to search it, but I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I can send out
That would be great.
the package that they had.
Thanks.
Yes.
Other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item from planning, which is the private road maintenance charge for Atlantic Breezes Neighborhood Lot Owners Association.
Yeah, so we've received a request from Atlantic Breezes Neighborhood Lot Owners Association for council to levy a private road maintenance fee for those properties. That it would be to maintain the roads in that subdivision, and that subdivision is located in Petite Riviere. We have a private roads bylaw that outlines certain criteria that have to be met, which one of those includes a petition with more than half of the signatures in favor of that. So the application received a 62% of the lot owners in favor. All of the other requirements have been, of the application complies with the requirements of the bylaw. And yeah, there would be, for this to be implemented, council would enter into an agreement with the association. That agreement makes it very clear that the municipality is not doing the work of maintaining the road. Our role is we collect the road maintenance fees. We do charge a 5% admin fee, and we turn those fees over to the association, which is responsible for the contracting of that road maintenance. The request submitted satisfies the requirements of our private road bylaw, and yeah, if Ms. Council so chooses, you can pass the motion to enter into the agreement, which I should say our solicitor has since reviewed that agreement.
Thank you. Councilor Reinhardt, do you want to put the motion on the floor, please?
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council levy a maintenance charge within the charge area identified by the Atlantic Breezes Neighborhood Lot Owners Association as a uniform amount per lot, with the 2026-2027 charge being set at $700 per lot, subject to an agreement being entered into that satisfies Section 9 of Bylaw 040 Private Roads, and I so move.
A seconder for the motion, please. Seconded by Councillor Burns. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. We're going to take a very short 5-minute break, and I mean 5 minutes. No more, no less. 7:58. We'll resume our meeting if everyone can take their places, and we will start with the annual report from the Coastal Protection Regulations, an annual report on the Coastal Protection Regulations, and Miss Ella, Miss Ella, please. You have a
good eve-
presentation, or is there a presentation to come up? Okay. Okay.
I'm just waiting for you to introduce yourself. Oh, okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and since I haven't seen you since Christmas break, so Happy New Year. Today we will present, Reed and I, the Coastal Protection Regulations Year 1 update. So I'll give a very brief overview just because some councilors and mayor were not here when that was passed. So the Coastal Protection Regulations were adopted in June 2024. Two main objectives: to protect people from the coast and to protect the coast from harmful development. The coastal protection area, so the regulations themselves, they encompasses about 7,000 properties, and within that sum, 600 and 446 properties are affected by one or more regulated areas. The regulations are protective, however, they are not prohibitive, and they have some build flexibilities with it. There are 3 coastal protection areas: the erosion risk area, and the erosion risk area encompasses a 30-meter setback with an option to reduce the setback to a minimum of 15 meters with a professional erosion assessment using the provincial SERFA methodology. In addition to that, there is a 15-meter fixed vegetative buffer. Despite the setback and the buffers, there's also additional flexibility for non-conforming uses, so existing structures, and also for marine accessory uses, such as decks or boathouses. There is also the flood risk area. In the flood risk area, there is a vertical elevation requirements for whole habitable spaces to be above 3.97 meters relative to CGVD 2013. We are prohibiting institutional uses there to ensure that vulnerable communities will not be located within danger-prone areas and areas that are prone for evacuation. In addition to that, there's flexibility for existing uses and accessory uses as well. In the sensitive coastal ecosystems areas, no development can occur within that 30-meter buffer except for pathways, boardwalks, and some recreational uses. However, there are built-in flexibility to that to remove that regulation completely because we are aware there are some provincial mapping inaccuracies. So through a study that was done either by a professional a designated professional or by Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change, there is an option to completely remove that regulation if the wetland is absent from that actual property. What happened within that year? So there were 139 permits issued. 86 of them were for construction, 33 for renovation, 19 additions, 1 new use, so 1 property changed use from residential to another use. There are also, in terms of the erosion setback reduction, so reducing from 30 meters to a minimum of 15, there was 1 study that was done and 2 assessments to remove wetlands that were done through survey and other and another study. Some implementation insights. Everything works well. The erosion risk area refines the setbacks. The SERFA methodology works. Professionals are using it. However, we are not using the tool. We are using the methodology as the tool has not been released by the province yet. In terms of flood risk area, no implementation challenges were identified. When it comes to sensitive coastal ecosystems, there were additional considerations due to provincial mapping inaccuracies that had to be taken into consideration. However, due to the built-in flexibility that allows to remove the regulation completely from that property, that provided that help into considering those considerations. What are we looking to do forward is to continue monitoring the erosion, flooding, and ecosystems conditions and see how the regulations apply. One of council policies that are placed in the municipal planning strategies to advance education and awareness. One option is to do this through nature, educating the public about nature-based solutions training, or even considering having a pilot project about, for example, a living shoreline. Another thing is to improve the interactive maps. When we did the municipal planning public engagement, we met with the development community, and they had some comments regarding the interactive map, and mentioned that there might be some of the coloring in the map might be misleading, or that the lack of having the erosion layer in the map also can create some confusions. Also, continue with the implementation findings as we go through every year until getting into year 5, when we need to do a full review of the plan of the project. Also, important to notify that there is national and international, MODL has some leadership when it comes to coastal protection regulations. Our staff presented in multiple conferences, met with different provinces to help with coastal protection regulations, and the municipality also won the 2025 Commonwealth Association of Planners Award commendation due to the planning coastal protection regulations. So that's for the annual report.
Thank you for that. It's really, I found it very interesting to read because, one of the things that I heard was, oh, this is going to close everything down and nobody's going to want to do anything. And they continued to do things and work with the regulations as they're proposed. So I think that's encouraging, and it will be good that we have a benchmark to move forward with. I guess one of the questions I had was around the erosion setback study, where they had to hire an engineer. Do you have any idea what that cost?
I do not have that.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
But maybe
I've asked the question before. I think it ranges to a few $1,000s. I think if they were to do a full assessment. But as the next item that Ella's going to talk about, we still need clarification from the province about the full requirements of that work. So there's a little bit of, I think, gray area about how that study is done and the extent of the work and the criteria that needs to be followed. So once that's ironed out with the province, I think we'll have a better sense of here's the methodology, here's the criteria, and then the professional associations will have something they can go on. So I think it ranges a bit because not everyone's necessarily working under the same criteria yet right now.
So is it like $2,000 to $5,000?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Questions, comments on the report? Councillor Smith.
I just wonder if you could speak a bit to the nature-based solutions pilot that you're thinking about. What would that look like, and are there ones that exist already?
I can start and then read if you would like to proceed. We don't really have anything as of now in mind in terms of a pilot project. However, we've seen a successful project happening in Mahone Bay. So the Living Shoreline in Mahone Bay is a pretty successful project that has been done and created a lot of interest in the province and outside of it. So that's a possibility in terms of locating an area that is owned by the municipality along the coastline that we notice there is erosion happening there, and we can apply that type of methodology into it and see how it works. So that's something that we can consider, and I don't have a lot of, except from that I can't say more than that because we haven't worked on anything, so.
Yeah, just to add to what Ella was saying, internally, we've had various discussions with our Recreation and Parks and Engineering departments about if there are opportunities that they are doing work on coastal sites that could benefit from this approach, that we're all on the same page. And so we'll be working with them if there are opportunities that there needs to be some shoreline work anyway. Here's an alternative, and it would also serve a dual purpose of that kind of public type of project where as a municipality, there's been quite a lot of public interest in in addressing some of the shoreline types of infrastructure that's been happening. And, you know, looking into the ways that that can be addressed, it's primarily through education and awareness. And so having something to point to that the municipality is doing to give people an alternative to kind of hardening the shoreline. We're certainly kind of looking for opportunities where that might come up, or if there are funding programs from, you know, the provincial or federal level, we're keeping on top of those. There's an organization called Green Shores who we participate, and we've been active members of that group for a couple of years now. And so we're very engaged with those people, and if there's different opportunities that come up, we'll be definitely taking advantage.
Other questions? Okay, maybe we can move on to the next part related to the coastal erosion risk factor assessment tool that we can't get our hands on.
So, as I mentioned before, this project, the coastal regulations have been in effect since 2024 and include a 30-meter erosion setback with flexibility to reduce the setback to a minimum of 15 meters when supported by a professional erosion assessment. The regulations were designed to rely on the provincial coastal erosion risk factor assessment, or the SERFA tool, to ensure these assessments are consistent and are scientifically based. However, the SERFA tool has not yet been publicly released, and as a result, qualified professionals are required to prepare reports without access to the standardized scoring and tool that the municipality was doing. Instead, they're relying on the methodology that is indicated in the report itself. This creates some uncertainty, and it reduces consistency and limits how effectively property owners can use the flexibility to build into MODL's regulations. Staff is recommending that Council formally request that the public release of the SERFA tool through a joint letter from Mayor and Council to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change with a copy to the Premier. Releasing the tool would support consistent and defensible erosion assessments across municipalities in the province, improve clarity and efficiency for qualified professionals, and strengthen alignment between provincial and municipal coastal resilience efforts. And most importantly, it would allow MODL's coastal protection regulations to function exactly as Council intended when the regulations came into effect. And it will help to protect the people and their property while enabling evidence-based and site-specific flexibility.
I just want to add one more thing. Yeah, just to kind of one final note on this is that when the province kind of changed direction with the Coastal Protection Act, they said that municipalities would be better suited to implement coastal regulations. And so at that time, they said, we're going to develop some tools and some funding, and they've done a lot of that work. But what they haven't done yet is given us access to this tool. So in doing that work, they've said municipalities are the best ones to do that. We're here to support you. And so by releasing this tool, they would be doing just that, is supporting municipalities, because we really do need access to that.
Would someone put the motion on the floor and then we can have a discussion? Because there may be some questions. Deputy Mayor Vino, thank you.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council authorize the mayor to submit a letter to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change with a copy to the Premier of Nova Scotia, formally requesting the public release of the Coastal Erosion Risk Factor Assessment, abbreviation SERFA, tool for use by qualified persons, and further, that the letter highlight the significance of the SERFA tool in ensuring consistent, science-based erosion assessments in supporting the effective implementation of the municipality's coastal protection regulations, and I so move.
And a seconder for the motion. Seconded by Councillor Reinhardt. Are there questions? Councillor Oikel.
Have they stated why they haven't released it yet?
We've been had a couple of conversations with staff. We believe that, or what we've been told is that it's with their legal team reviewing it from that perspective. It may just be stalled at that stage, but we don't have exact confirmation about where things are.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, we will move to our mayors, deputy mayors, and councillor matters. And committee recruitment advertising. Councillor Oikel, you've raised this.
Yes, actually, our nominating committee have discussed it, and so I thought I would bring it here for further discussion, because we have noticed a decline in applications for our committees our committees that we have members at large on. And we're just wanting to be able to update the appearance and the approach of the recruitment advertising. And also, Councillor Smith brought up that perhaps we also need to be able to do some education and awareness component for residents so that they know what to expect if they were to be a part of a committee and what all the committees actually do. And so we just wanted to bring it here as a discussion to see what the rest of council feels regarding this issue.
Comments?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I just wanted to support the comments that I think there's a lot of improvement to be made in this area, because I think that currently the information, it goes to the paper, and it goes, sometimes it's put on Facebook as well. But, you know, you look around at other municipalities and they're using different ways to reach people. And I think one thing that Councillor Oikel brought up was that, you know, if we planned ahead and looked at all the committees and the openings that are coming up, we could actually, you know, list them all as a group. Like, these are the opportunities that are coming up this year, you know, maybe, you know, do some kind of drop-in education session about, you know, roles on committees, that kind of thing. I just think it's a really important way that community members can serve their communities, and there's, yeah, lots of room for improvement, and you know, not sure what the outcome will be, but I think it's worth getting staff to look at.
So on the issue, certainly we're happy to do the work, but you'll have to tell us what we're going to take off our current list of 108 items. Because we can't continue to add without taking off, or things just continue to be pushed. Also, we don't currently have a communications person who would primarily be tasked with a lot of this work. And when we do get one, we have engagement on the second draft of the MPS and LUB for late winter, early spring. We have budget messaging, which will take us into April and possibly May. So even if council wants us to start this, it's not something that we're going to be able to tackle in the short term. It's going to be pushed farther into the long term. And so if council feels that this is a priority, again, we're happy to engage and start it. But we would have to identify something that's currently on the list with a timeline and remove it. Now, Dalhousie University is having engagement days, and they're having a session specifically for nonprofit groups. The mayor and I met with Dalhousie reps today, along with representatives of District Chester, and brought up the need for work on volunteers and how to increase the number of volunteers and what kind of support we have to provide to get the volunteers interested in working. We've heard lots of community organizations indicate that their volunteers are working hundreds of hours, sometimes thousands of hours, like the food bank. So we're often drawing from the same pool of people and trying to interest them in committees. And I agree that if we're going to be successful in recruiting for committees, we have to tell them what the expectation is, but we also have to be able to say that council will listen, will engage the committee. Because we have a PAC that we've cut out of the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw process almost completely. So we're unlikely to recruit for PAC when it appears that council's focus isn't to engaging at PAC, it's to move things through council. So if we're going to do it, we have to ensure that we're doing it meaningfully and that we're prepared to have that work meaningful for the volunteers. I know council's also interested in looking at the number of committees that we have and possibly streamlining it somewhat. So it might make more sense to look at the committees, focus on those committees that you think have the most impact, educate and provide information to volunteers for those committees, because it would be worse if we started the volunteer education program, got people interested in committees that then we decide to close off the committee because it's not serving the purpose. So I think it's a great goal to have, but it should be done in a more complete fashion. But I'll leave it for the discussion, but I am continually going to say, as new things come up, either do we put it at the end of the list, which is years out, or is it a priority item that you want us to remove something from the list? And some things, like the planning team, they're working until June on the MPS and the LUB. Like that is our priority. The finance team is working on the budget between now and the end of March, and that is a priority. So it's, I think if the initiative is something that council feels is important, I think we should have a discussion about committees, the role of the committees, whether we have the right number of committees, whether we have the right committees in place and that the scope makes sense. And then once we get our house in order, as part of that, we can create some additional information to go to get volunteers. Because I agree, the way we're doing it now, we're not getting people. We're not getting good quality candidates to apply for the positions that we post for.
Councillor Oikle.
Thank you very much. So do we give direction to do exactly what you have just said? Or the fact that you said it, is that going to start to happen?
So if you want to give me direction to do something, I need to know what I'm not going to do, like what's coming off the list.
Right.
So if you want us
maybe
to
we
review
need
the
to have
committees-
another copy of that list. Because maybe there are some things on there that.
We just reviewed it.
Yeah, you
Councillor
just
Oikle, we
approved
just
it.
approved it and reviewed it.
The whole 100 and some? I don't remember, well, I
in the
don't remember
strate-
all of them.
Yeah, at our strategic, but the issue about committees is on that list.
Yes.
Right,
So-
okay.
So if you can wait, we can do the work on the committees, and then as part of that bigger project with the committees, talk about how we can better recruit, and then lean on the new communication person once they have some time to adjust and tackle the high priority issues on how they may go about doing it. But it's not just MODL that has problems, recruiting volunteers. It's municipalities across the board, and not just municipalities, nonprofits. But there may be some good information coming out of the Dalhousie Engagement Days, and they have a focused group which is only discussing nonprofit issues.
One of the other things was regarding advertising as well. That was the first one, and one of the suggestions at our nominating committee was that perhaps members of council could know what committees are coming up that need somebody on them, and that those that have Facebook or newsletters could advertise or add that to those social media platforms, but they can't do it if they don't have that list. So if that is a possibility to be able, to have that list. if people, if.
So we can,
feel that.
like, administrative functions like that, we can certainly do. We can look at different forms of advertising, because we're already doing advertising.
Right.
But it's not a small piece of work to create
An
education
right.
program to
Yes,
attract
we
volunteers to
understand
serve
that. But we
communities.
did want to bring it here and have that discussion.
Yeah, I think there's some really simple things can be done. The actual, like, format for the ads that run, they look more like, I don't know what. They're not very appealing, with all respect. And I think us as counselors being able to do a bit of promotion, it might be helpful as well. So I think there's some simple things we can do that don't add extra pressure to staff. But the issue of committees is on our list. And I think what Tom has outlined is a valid point about then, once we get that, really deciding what role do we want the community to play in our decision-making. And if we ask them to sit on a committee, are we going to listen to them? Like, let's be honest, you know, we've seen it where the committee has done a lot of work, it's come to council, and they don't necessarily accept what that committee has presented. So we'll make sure that the communication around how the ads look, where they're placed, us doing a little of our own promotion, we can do that easily. So, okay, let's move then to MJSB.
And that's me again. The last MJSB meeting was Wednesday, December the 3rd. And I have a few things here. Extended producer responsibility, which has already started, but I'll just go through my report. For information only, Nova Scotia is transitioning to a new recycling model under the Extended Producer Responsibility, the EPR program, which shifts responsibility for residential packaging and paper products, PPP, from municipalities to producers. This program begins on December the 1st, 2025, which I'm sure all of you are very much aware of that. The MJSB staff negotiated with Circular Materials under the opt-in model. This allows the MJSB partners to continue providing curbside recycling while being reimbursed for service costs. Delays caused by provincial and insurance concerns now have been resolved, and the contracts with Circular Materials are ready to be moving forward. To ensure consistent messaging to residents, Region 6 communications have been shared on the South Shore Waste Solutions website, Facebook, Instagram pages. Sorting and collecting schedules are also included in the annual municipal collection calendars distributed each December. Also, curbside collection for the municipality of the District of Lunenburg and the town of Bridgewater will move to a Tuesday-Friday schedule starting April the 1st, 2026. This is a reminder that the new schedule will be included in the municipal collection calendars distributed in December of 2025. And residents will also be informed through the South Shore Waste Solutions website, social media, radio, and printed advertising. Compost equipment. The compost screener is approximately 16 years old and is nearing the end of its useful life. Over the past year, the equipment has deteriorated significantly. Temporary repairs were made this summer, and a full inspection was completed once the screening season ended. Completing the recommended repairs would extend the screen service life by 5 to 10 years, delaying the need for a major capital replacement. The board awarded the compost screener repair work to be done at the cost of $23,262. Corporate identity project update. Board approved Municipal Shared Service South Shore Region as the operating name for the Municipal Joint Service Board effective mid-January 2026, and the board authorized staff to proceed with implementation across corporate communication templates and the new MJSB website. And that's my report.
Any questions on that? Okay. Deputy Mayor Vino.
Well, we're just coming back from our break. I have very little to report other than the agenda briefing from last week, but I look forward to continuing this year, assisting the mayor where I can and other councillors in my role. Thank you.
I think I've wished everyone a Happy New Year, and we feel like we're well into it, but as we begin 2026, we do so in a period of significant global turbulence and uncertainty. The past year has underscored the economic and geopolitical vulnerabilities facing Canada, particularly our long-standing reliance on the United States for economic prosperity and defense. The risks associated with that dependency have been exposed in ways not experienced under any former American presidents in living memory. While these forces are largely beyond our control as a municipality, they do matter, because global uncertainty, geopolitical unrest, and the renewed presence of imperialism from our southern neighbor have both overt and subliminal impacts on our residents. In this context, I believe our role locally is to take deliberate, practical steps to build a strong community that's vibrant and resilient, and one that can withstand the turbulence that we face that is not going to end in the next year. I think we are on that path. Councillor Hubley and I met with the representatives of the Tri-District Fire Service to explore potential funding sources for the renovation of the fire hall in Newcomville. And we know how important this service is, and we also know how expensive renovations are, and they were looking for advice on sources of funding and opportunities to build out a new extension to their facility. I was pleased to participate in a number of community and municipal events throughout the holiday season, which I know many of you also attended, so I'm not going to recite all of those. Council also completed a series of 4 meetings to provide direction to staff on our municipal planning strategy, informed by the What We Heard report and our individual conversations with residents. This was an important phase of the process, which allowed Council to clearly articulate priorities and concerns about moving forward with the strategy. And I do look forward, and as I think all of us do, to receiving draft 2 of the municipal planning strategy and continuing the work that will be before us in the spring. I met with 2 residents from Wildville who raised concerns regarding the proposed housing development in Auburndale on Lower Branch Road. Their concerns focused on potential impacts to the water table, sewage capacity, and the broader pressures on infrastructure, including the regional hospital, schools, and road network. These conversations just make these kinds of developments and changes in our community very real and really point out the issues that become very front of mind for our residents. And it really is a good reminder of how important it is to stay in touch with what residents think and believe about how we balance growth with preserving the communities that we live in. I participated in the strategic planning session for the Municipal Joint Services Board and took part in the interviews for a new Chief Operating Officer, which I think, can we announce, has been, we've selected Jill Rafuse, who will start on February the 4th. Jill lives in our community, an engineer with an MBA and lots of federal government experience. So we look forward to her leadership at the MJSB. And she's in your district, Councillor Bell. I attended a webinar hosted by the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, led by the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Energy Regulator, on the regulatory approval process for offshore wind development. And really you say, well, why would I do that? But you know, wind development and what the implications are for our province are significant. And originally there were sites that were to be developed that were closer to us than the 3 that have been identified now. But there are 10 sites, and 3 of them are now in the next steps of the process, which is lengthy, detailed, and highly regulated. So if you want to read about it, you can go to their site and see the actual layout of the regulatory process. But I actually did, for me, who doesn't really like a lot of regulations, I did appreciate the outline. In keeping with our sustainability goals, I participated in the launch of the new EV charging station at the Lunenburg Lifestyle Center, hosted by Nova Scotia Power. And, you know, we have received comments from residents about the lack of EV infrastructure in our community all along the South Shore. Between Halifax and Yarmouth, on the South Shore side of Nova Scotia, there is not the same level of infrastructure as there is on the valley. Now, I don't know, Tom, if you had anything to do with that, but we don't have the same level of infrastructure, and certainly people with EV cars are quick to inform us that we don't have that here. So, you know, I had a conversation with some of the Nova Scotia Power people about it. There is another 2 stations, I think, going in this month or later this month at the Emera Centre in Liverpool. But prior to that, I'm not sure there was anything between here and Yarmouth. There might have been one in Shelburne, but there's a lot of infrastructure that's required. The Deputy Mayor provided me with a really good tour of the MARC buildings being considered as part of our redevelopment of the MARC site. It's clear that there are significant issues related to the physical condition of the buildings, as well as the need to better align future amenities with the evolving needs of our community. And I think that's what we have to think about, is how we're going to use it as we move into the future, because any investment we make, we know we've got a lot of other parks that are waiting for investment too. So we have to make sure we put the right amenities and the right structures in place that will suit us well into the future. As a council, we also face a demanding and a consequential year ahead. And I think what we did in our first year is that we learned to work together as council members, and I think we have a good working relationship here together and with our staff. And I think the other thing we spent time on was building relationships with our neighbors. And I think that was time well spent, because we have a lot of things that we want and that we are working on together. And I think the need to build that trust and the need to be able to have honest, sometimes difficult conversations, I think will be easier because we've invested time in building those relationships. Our work will involve continued collaboration, difficult but necessary discussions about infrastructure and service levels, and focused on a disciplined, long-term, sustainable solution to some of our infrastructure issues, rather than just addressing short-term fixes. I believe it's essential that we approach this work with clarity, with mutual respect, and a shared commitment to public interest, recognizing that the decisions we make this year will shape our district for decades to come. As I look ahead to 2026, I'm encouraged by the progress that we've made, focusing on advancing several projects that began taking shape in 2025. This will be an important year. As I've said to people over Christmas, year 1 was a year of learning. Year 2 is about getting things finished and getting things done. So let's capitalize on the momentum that we've started in our first year of working together, and continue with the discussions that I know will be fruitful as we move into 2026. And I wish you all well in 2026.
Just can you go back to the meeting you had when you said about a subdivision in Auburndale? And then I think you said on the Lower Branch Road, it would be the Upper Branch Road. Okay. I just didn't want people to get confused with the development that is going on the Lower Branch Road. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Welcome.
I will make sure I change that in here. Thank you. I think that's our agenda for this part of the meeting, but we do need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Oikel, and a seconder for the motion? Councillor Burns. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move in camera.
For the door.
Run. We have completed our in-camera session, and there is no further business on our agenda. The